Part-1. And if you like this video, don't forget to smash that like button and share this video with as many people as you can. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, do it and press the notification bell too so that you don't miss any of my videos. So without any delay, let's get started. And today we are going to do the ultimate awesome JavaScript. And today we are going to do HTML DOM in JavaScript. And like there will be 3 parts: part 1, part 2, part 3. This is part 1. So without any delay, let's get started. Damn! So I'm minimizing this. Okay. And I'm going to Google Chrome. Oh, sorry. Google Chrome. Yeah. So JavaScript HTML DOM. So with the HTML DOM, DOM's full form is Document Object Model. So with the HTML Document Object Model, JavaScript can access and change all the elements of an HTML document. So with the HTML Document Object Model, JavaScript can access, change all the elements of an HTML document. Okay, so we will see what is HTML DOM and all. Okay, but with the HTML DOM, JavaScript can access and change all the elements of an HTML document. The HTML DOM. Okay, so now let's see what is the HTML DOM. When a web page is loaded, the browser, so your browser creates a document object model of the page. So the browser creates a document object model, that is DOM, of the page. Okay, the HTML DOM model is constructed as a tree of objects. So basically what HTML DOM model is, it's like the HTML DOM model is constructed as a tree of objects. So like the HTML DOM model is constructed as a tree of objects. So like the HTML DOM tree of objects. So like here we have the document. Okay, inside that we have HTML tag. So this is the root element. Okay, in that we have two children, head and body. So head and body's parent is HTML, and HTML's two children are head and body. Then body has two children, A and H1. Okay, and A has two children, text and attribute href, mylink and href, and H1 has one child, that is text myheader. Okay, similarly like root elements, child is head also, and head has one child, title, and title has a child, my title. Okay, so like this is like the HTML DOM tree of objects. Like this is type of a file, and like here this website has like made like you can imagine a file in your mind. Like there's a HTML tag, inside that there are two tags, head and body. In head there is a title tag, and in title we are giving the text my title, and in body we have a tag. In a tag we are giving a attribute h reference, and its text is my link. And then we have in body h1 tag, and like its text is my header. Okay, so with the object model, JavaScript gets all the power it needs to create dynamic HTML. So the JavaScript gets all the power it needs to create dynamic HTML. Okay, so like JavaScript can change all the HTML elements in the page. So JavaScript can change all the HTML elements in the page. So like you must have noticed, JavaScript can change like almost every single, not almost, it can change every single element in the page. JavaScript can change all the HTML attributes in the page. It can change attributes also. So like on click, on mouse over, on mouse down, and all that. Okay. JavaScript can change all the CSS styles in the page. So like JavaScript can change like document.get element by ID, this dot style, dot background color, or dot color, and whatever color you want. So like JavaScript can change all the CSS styles in the page. JavaScript can remove existing HTML elements and attributes. JavaScript can also remove existing HTML elements and attributes. JavaScript can add new HTML elements and attributes. JavaScript can add new HTML elements and attributes. JavaScript can react to all existing HTML events in the page. So JavaScript can react to all existing HTML events in the page also. And JavaScript can create new HTML events in the page. Okay. So what you will learn? So what you will learn in all these DOM chapters? In the next chapters of this tutorial, you will learn how to change the content of HTML elements. So how to change the content of HTML elements. How to change the style of HTML elements. So how to change the style of HTML elements. How to react to HTML DOM events. So how to react to HTML DOM events, and how to add and delete HTML elements. So like these are the main points that you will learn. Like you will learn DOM methods, DOM document, DOM elements, DOM HTML, DOM CSS. Then you will learn animations also in the next part. In this part, we will learn from DOM intro till DOM CSS. So we including DOM CSS. So we will do intro, methods, document, elements, HTML, and CSS. So these all chapters we will do today. Okay. And we will do these three chapters, animations, events, and event listener, in the next part. And then we will do navigation, nodes, collections, and node list in the final part. Okay. So what is DOM? So basically, what is DOM? The DOM is a W3C. W3C is World Wide Web Consortium standard. So the DOM is a W3C standard. So the DOM is basically the World Wide Web Consortium standard. The DOM defines a standard for accessing documents. So the DOM defines a standard for accessing documents. The W3C document object model, so DOM, is a platform and language neutral interface. So DOM is a platform and language neutral interface that allows programs and scripts to dynamically access and update the content, structure, and style of a document. So basically, DOM is a platform and a language neutral interface that allows programs and scripts. So it allows programs and scripts to dynamically access and update the content. To dynamically access and update the content. Structure, to like access and update structure, and style of a document. The W3C DOM standard is separated into three parts. So the DOM standard is separated into three parts: core DOM, XML DOM, and HTML DOM. Core DOM is standard model for all document types. So like all the things in core DOM are in XML DOM and HTML DOM both. So like the name only suggests core. The name only suggests that like core. The name only suggests that it is like that. Okay. XML DOM XML DOM is a standard model for XML documents. So it is a standard model for XML documents. And HTML DOM is a standard model for HTML documents. So basically, we are going to focus on mostly we are going to focus on HTML DOM. Like we are going to focus on HTML DOM because the chapters are only HTML about HTML DOM. So what is the HTML DOM? Now what is the HTML DOM? We have learned that what is DOM. But let's see what is HTML DOM. The HTML DOM is a standard object model. So it is a standard object model and programming interface for HTML. So it is a standard object model and a programming interface for HTML. It defines the HTML elements as objects. So it defines the HTML elements as objects. The properties of all HTML elements. So the properties of all HTML elements. The methods to access all HTML elements. So the methods to access all HTML elements and the events for all HTML elements. So let's repeat. It defines the HTML elements as objects. So the HTML elements as objects. The properties of all HTML elements. So the properties of all the HTML elements. The methods to access all HTML elements. The methods to access all HTML elements. And the events for all HTML elements. And the events for all HTML elements. In other words, the HTML DOM is a standard for how to get, change, add or delete HTML elements. So in other words, using the HTML DOM, you can get, change, add or delete HTML elements. So using HTML DOM. Okay. And now we are on the next chapter, that is methods. It is a short chapter, not too long, but it is very informative, though it is small. Let's take a break I'm gonna take a break of only 10 seconds. Okay? Only 10. Okay, so HTML DOM methods. HTML DOM methods are actions you can perform on HTML elements. So the HTML DOM methods are actions. So they are actions that you can perform on HTML elements. Okay, HTML DOM properties. So the methods are actions you can perform on HTML elements. But HTML DOM properties are values of HTML elements that you can set or change. So HTML DOM properties are values of HTML elements that you can set or change. Okay. So the DOM programming interface. So the document object model programming interface. Okay, sorry. The HTML DOM can be accessed with JavaScript, okay, and with other programming languages also. So the HTML DOM can be accessed with JavaScript and with other programming languages also. In the DOM, all HTML elements are defined as objects. So in the DOM, all HTML elements are defined as objects. Okay. So in the DOM, all HTML elements are defined as objects. Okay, the programming interface is the properties and methods of each object. So the programming interface is the properties and methods of each object. Okay, a property is a value that you can get or set. So a property is a value that you can get or set, like changing the content of an HTML element. Like changing and content of HTML element. A method is an action you can do. So a method is an action that you can do, like add or deleting an element. Like adding or deleting an HTML element. An example. The following example changes the content the inner HTML of the P element with ID demo. So the following example changes the content, the inner HTML of the P element with ID demo. So like over here, what we have a HTML tag. In that we are making a body. We have a P tag, its ID's demo, so paragraph tag. In script we are accessing it using its ID by the document.get element. So like using the get element by ID method. So like the ID is demo, so we are giving demo over here. Okay, and inner HTML. So like inner HTML is changing the text that the P tag will print. Over here the text is empty. Okay, but uh, so like if we didn't give this line, it will not print anything because the P tag is empty. Okay, but when we do this, then it is changing the P tag's printing value using the inner HTML property of it, and it is setting it to hello world. So hello world is P tag is printing hello world. Okay, in the example above, get element by ID is a method while inner HTML is a property. So I told you that. The get element by ID method. So let's see what is the get element by ID method. The most common way to access an HTML element is use the ID of the element. So the most common ways to access the HTML element is the most common way to access an HTML element is to use the ID of the element. In the example above, the get element by ID method used ID equals to demo to find the element. Okay, so like the ID was demo and it checked for an element for the ID of an ID demo, and a P tag had the ID demo, so access that using the get element by ID method. Now let's see what is the inner HTML property. The easiest way to get the content of an element is by using the inner HTML property. So basically, using the inner HTML property, you can get the content of an element, or you can change the content of an element. The HTML property is useful for getting or replacing the content of HTML elements. The inner HTML property can be used to get or change any HTML element, including the HTML tag and the body tag also. Okay, so the inner HTML, using the inner HTML property, you can change the HTML content of HTML tag and the body tag. Okay, and this chapter is done. And now we are on the HTML DOM document. This is also not quite big, but it is very informative. Okay, so don't try to skip any chapter, because if you skip any chapter, you will get less information. Okay, let's take a 10 seconds break, because we have just completed another chapter. 4 chapters to go, 2 chapters done. Quite, we are set. Quite good. Okay, let's take a short break. We are having a short break. I'm loving this short break. Okay. Done. So in JavaScript HTML DOM document, the HTML DOM document object, so the document object is the owner of all other objects in your web page. So the HTML DOM document object is the owner of all other objects in your web page. Okay, the HTML DOM document object. Let's see what is the HTML DOM document object. The document object represents your web page. So this document object represents your web page. if you want to access any element in an HTML page, so if you want to access any element in an HTML page, you always start with accessing the document object. So like you have seen, we whenever we call the get element by id method, we do document.get element by id. We don't directly do get element by id. Okay, so we have to give a document in front. Below are some examples of how you can use the document object to access and manipulate HTML. So now let's see how to find HTML elements. So one method is the get element by id method and then give the id in it. Second is get elements by tag name. Document.get elements by tag name, and you give the tag name over here. And then finally the third method is document.get elements by class name. Get elements by class name, and you give the class name over here. So let's see, what does document.get element by id do? Find an element by element id. So using the get element by id method, you can find an element using its id. Using the document.get elements by tag name method, you can find elements by their tag name. And using the document.get elements by class name method, you can find elements by their class name. Okay. So like here, if you have a tag, if you have like 3 or 4 like p tags in your program, and you are accessing you want to access the p tags, then you can do get elements by tag name. Okay, so we will learn how to use get elements by tag name further. Okay, and all these methods. We saw how to use get element by id. We will learn how to use these both, get elements by tag name and get elements by class name. Now we are on changing HTML elements. So like how to change HTML elements. One of the property is element.innerHTML. Okay, inner HTML equals to new HTML content. Okay, then second is element.attribute. Okay, new value. Okay, and then finally element.style.property. So element.style.property equals to new style. Okay, and there's a method element, so that you run on the element, not on the document. Dot set attribute. Okay, so you give the attribute and its value. Okay, so like the description of element.innerHTML is change the inner HTML of an element. So using the inner HTML, you can change the inner HTML of an element. Using the attribute property, you can change the attribute value of an HTML element. Using the HTML element.style.property, you can change the style of an HTML element. And using the set attribute method, you can change the attribute value of an HTML element, like element.attribute. Okay, now we are on adding and deleting elements. How to add and delete elements. So here we have method is document.create element. Okay, document.create element. Okay, so like if you want to create a p tag using JavaScript, you can do document.create element, and in that you can give over here p, so it create a p tag. So create an HTML element. So using the create element, you can create an HTML element. Then we have a method document.remove child element. You can remove an HTML element using the remove child method. This is quite cool, right? Using the document.append child method, you can add an HTML element. So like when you can use append child, so like when you have created an element using create element, and then you can append it to the HTML file using append child. Okay, Then we have document.replace child, new one and then old one. Replace an HTML element. So you can replace an HTML element also. And then document.write write into the HTML output stream. Okay. Now we are on adding event handlers. Now we are on adding event handlers. So like we have document.get element by id dot on click. So this is an event handler, right? Like on click. Okay. So like on mouse down. Okay. And all these. Like document.get element by id you give, and then like you give on click, and then you give the function that you want on click. Adding event handler code to an on click event. On click event, so like mostly you give an on click event to a button. Okay, like when a button is clicked, call this function. Okay, now we are on finding HTML objects. How to find HTML objects? The first HTML DOM level 1, 1998. So like the first HTML DOM level 1 in 1998 defined 11 HTML objects. Sorry. So it defined 11 HTML objects, object collections and properties. These are still valid in HTML5. So these are still valid in HTML5. Later in HTML DOM level 3, more objects, collections and properties were added. Okay, so these are a combination of 1 and 3. So we will try most of these. Okay, so there's no try it editor over here, so I'm just gonna open another editor. So like from here there was a try it editor over in methods, so I've opened its editor. Now we can do editing a bit. Okay, so now the first one is document.anchors. So returns all the A elements that have a name attribute. So that have a name attribute. It was made in DOM level 1. Okay, so let's try this document.anchors. If we don't have a tag over here and we just do anchors. Sorry, my caps lock was on. Anchors. Nothing is coming because there are no anchors over here. If I added a tag over here, an empty a tag, so like just like a. Oh, I'm not doing anything with the anchors, right? So I'm just doing document dot get element by id element by id demo dot inner html equals to dom document.anchors. So this is a HTML collection. Okay, so to show this I'll do dot inner HTML. So it's inner HTML undefined, so it does not have, so like if I do json.stringify, then so this is, I'm doing json.stringify to print this object. Stringify. Okay, so it is an empty object because we don't have any anchors. Okay, if I give an anchor, an empty anchor, so with like some gibberish text. Okay, so the anchor has come, but still there is this is empty because like there this does not have a name. If I give this a name equals to some gibberish, then this anchor will come in this because it had a name. And like in anchors property, or it returns all A elements that have a name attribute. Okay, so this had a name attribute, that's why it came. Now we are on document.applets. Return all applet elements deprecated in HTML5. So, and it was made in like HTML level 1. So sadly we cannot test this applets thing because like it is deprecated in HTML5 and the current version is HTML5 going on, so we can't test this. Now we are on document.base URI. Returns the absolute base URI of the document. This was made in DOM level 3 and I don't think we need to test this. We will test something else. Document.body returns the body element. So it returns the body element and it was made in document DOM 1. So like let's try this. So if I give over here document.body, so HTML body element, okay, and if I do .inner HTML over here, so this is the body's inner HTML, like right, so like in the body we are giving this h2 my first page and then a tag over here, right? So this is the body's inner HTML, so it is printing all the body's inner HTML, okay, and it does not print the code, it like gives the logical output, okay. Now we are on document.cookie. This returns the document's cookies 1, okay. So it was made in DOM 1, it was defined in DOM 1. So document.cookie or cookies, cookie, okay, cookie. So this is the cookie. Sadly it is not human readable, okay, so like I can't read it, but using the document cookie it is returning the cookies in the document, okay. Document.doc type returns the document's doc type and this was defined in DOM 3. So this is interesting. If I do document.doc type, then HTML, if I do .inner HTML, undefined, yeah, so there's no inner. If I do JSON.stringify, this is the only way I can do it now. JSON.stringify. Okay, it is empty. Okay, so I don't know why, like it returns the documents type, but it will not show it. It was showing when we did like this. It was showing like it does not show the doc type like clearly. So it is showing the object document type. Okay, so we should not waste so much of time on this. Document.document element returns the HTML element. So if I do document.document element, document element, then see HTML element, and if I do its inner HTML, so it will show us I'll say inner HTML, then it is showing us this because like in the HTML tag we have a body and so it is showing all the body, it is displaying the body, and in the body we had this, so like it is displaying it, okay. Now we are on the doc type was made in DOM 3. Now we are on sorry, the document element was made in DOM 3 also, and document mode now it returns the mode used by the browser. This is also in version DOM 3. So document mode, something like this. Or what was it? It was this only. I don't think we need this. Undefined. Document or document mode. Document or document mode. I don't know what it's doing. Okay. Okay, so we need not waste too much of time on this, so because it is not so important. If it was quite important, then I would have given some time to it, but it is not so important because on my other laptop it was working, but right now it's not working. I don't know why. Document the document URI. This was also made in DOM 3, and it returns the URI of the document. Okay, so it returns the URI of the document. So we need not test this. Okay, document.domain. So document.domain returns the domain name of the document server. It was made in DOM 1. So let's see that can we do this. I'm doing document.domain. Okay, so this is the domain, right? This is the domain www.w3schools.com. So we are on this website right now. That's why it is showing us this domain. So this is basically the domain. Okay, now we are on document.dom config. Obsolete. Returns the DOM configuration. So it returns the DOM configuration, and I'll do DOM config fig undefined. Okay, and it was made in like DOM 3. Document.embeds returns all embed elements. Okay, so there we need not test this because it is saying clearly what it does. Okay, and it was like in like DOM 3. Then document.forms returns on form elements. This is also saying it clearly. It was made in DOM 1. Document.head. So like document.head is the same as document.body. Instead it returns the head, element. Okay. It was made in DOM 3. Okay. Document.images returns all img elements. This is also saying it clearly, and it was made in DOM 1. Document.implementation returns the DOM implementation, and it was made in like DOM 3. So let's try this. Document.implementation. Okay, so it is returning as the object. So document.input encoding returns the document's encoding, the character set. So it is saying us clearly, so we need not test this. It was made in DOM 3. Document.last modifiers return the date and time the document was updated. This was also made in DOM 3. Document.links returns all area and a elements that have a href attribute. This was made in DOM 1. Okay, so this is also saying it clearly what it does. We need not test this. Document.ready state returns the loading status of the document. It was made in DOM 3, so it returns the loading status. Okay, like it returns the status of the document, ready state. Okay. Now we are on document.referer. It was made in DOM 1. It returns the URI of the referer. Okay. Document or scripts returns all script elements. It was made in DOM 3. This was made in DOM 1. Document or strict error checking. This was made in DOM 3 and it returns if error checking is enforced. And document or title. This was made in DOM 1. It returns the title element, and document or URL returns the complete URL of the document. So we can test this because this is quite interesting. So what does it return? Like complete URL, like this. It is giving us the complete URL. This is the same URL we are on. So it is giving us the complete URL. Okay, and it was made in DOM 1. And we have completed this chapter. Yay! This next chapter is not quite long. It is gonna take us some time, but it's not so long, but it's okay. Let's take a break. Oh, quite. I'm like quite tired of speaking so much. So many things I spoke right now. But it's okay, I will still teach. I'm here to teach. Oh, we can close this example. Oh, let's take a break. Oh, feels good. Not so much, but okay. Oh, okay. Ah. Ow. I just stretched my arm. So the JavaScript HTML DOM elements. This page teaches you how to find and access HTML elements in an HTML page. Okay, so this page teaches you how to find and access HTML elements in an HTML ways. Finding HTML elements. Often with JavaScript, you want to manipulate HTML elements. Okay, so to do so, you have to find the elements first. There are several ways to do this. Finding HTML elements by ID, so using the document.getElement by ID method. Finding HTML elements by tag name, so like you can use that using like document.getElements by tag name. And finding HTML elements with class name, so you can use like document.getElements by class name. Okay, finding HTML elements by CSS selectors, so like query selectors all. And finding HTML elements by HTML object collections. So these are the 5 ways to find HTML elements. Finding HTML elements by ID. The easiest way to find an HTML element is in the DOM is by using the element ID. This example finds the element with ID intro. Okay, so like here we have a element with ID intro. Okay, and we are finding it using document.getElement by ID intro. So the element has come, and then we are doing document.getElement by ID demo dot inner HTML equals to this. The text from the intro paragraph is plus my element, so the element that we found dot inner HTML. So it's inner HTML. It is hello world. That's why it is printing the text from the intro paragraph is hello world. Okay. So if the element is found, the method will return the element as an object in my element. So if the element is found, the method will return the element as an object. If the element is not found, my element will contain null. So if the element is not found, my element will contain null. So now we are on finding HTML elements by tag name. This example finds all p elements. So this example finds all p elements. We're doing var x equals to document dot get elements by tag name. So we are accessing all the elements with the tag name p. Okay, and they are all coming in x. Okay, and then we are doing document dot get element by id demo dot in html. The text in first paragraph index 0 is x0. So basically what happens, like array type of comes, and like we are accessing its 0th element. So the 0th p tag is this hello world p tag. So it's in a html is hello world, so it is printing hello world over here, over here. Okay, this example finds the element with id equals to main. So this example is finding, oh sorry. So, oh sorry, why did I put this? So this example finds the elements with id main and then finds all p elements inside main. Okay, so here we saw how to find all the p elements in the document, but over here we can we are doing how to have all the p elements inside the element id, which whose id is main. So like here we have a var x equals to document get element by id main. So we are accessing the main element, and then we are doing variable y equals to x dot get elements by tag name. So like we are doing x was document dot get element by id main. So basically we are doing over here document dot get element by id main dot get elements by tag name p. So this is how you can get the p elements inside a specific element. So like here we have a div id main. It has two p elements. This DOM is very useful, and this example demonstrates blah blah blah. Okay, and we are in this we are printing the y0th dot in html. So we are printing the like we are accessing the y0. So this is the zeroth element that is coming. So this is the zeroth element because it was the first p. Okay, and its in html is the DOM is very useful. That's why the DOM is very useful is coming. Okay, so now we are on finding html elements by class name. We have seen how to find html elements with tag name and with id, but now let's see how to find html elements with class name. Then we will see how to do them with css selectors, and then we will do them with object collections. Okay, so class name. If you want to find all HTML elements with the same class name, use the get elements by class name method. This example returns a list of all elements with class intro. So this example is accessing all the is having an array of all the elements with class intro. So like here we give this p tag class intro and this p tag class intro. So using this, an array is coming in which this p tag and this p tag are in that array. Okay, and we are doing we are printing x0. So x0th element is this p tag, in which the DOM is very useful is there, and it's inner HTML. So the DOM is very useful is the inner HTML. So in the DOM is very useful is being printed, and like you see how we are accessing the elements using the class name, using document get elements by class name, and then you give the class name. Okay, finding elements by class name does not work in Internet Explorer 8 and earlier versions. Okay, finding HTML elements by CSS selectors. So how to find HTML elements by CSS selectors? If you want to find all HTML elements that match a specified CSS selector like ID, class names, types, attributes, values of attributes, etc. So like if you want to find all the HTML elements that match a specified CSS selector like ID, class names, types, attributes, values of attributes, etc., use the query selector all method. So you should use the query selector all method. This example returns a list of all p elements with class intro. So this example is returning all the list of all the p elements with class intro. Okay, like we are doing var x equals to document dot query selector all p dot intro. So all the p tags with the class intro. So like if we wanted to select like all the p tags with id demo, so like all the p tags with id demo, so what we had to do, we had to give hashtag over here like we do in css to access an id, and then you give demo. So over here nothing is coming because in demo there is nothing. If I give blah 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 value, then 5454 is coming because the 5454 was its value. And if I give 1 over here, 1 is no element, or it will give what this is quite silly. Literally by giving 1, it is just removing all this. Quite silly. Okay, but using 1, like all that, what we say, so it is not giving us undefined, it will give us 5454. Okay, because if it is exceeding from the like so like if it is the number is exceeding the range, then the last element's value comes in it. Okay, so the query selector all method does not work in Internet Explorer 8 or and earlier versions. So finding HTML elements by HTML object collection. This example finds the form H elements with ID form1 in the forms collection and displays all element values. So like in this we are creating a variable x, and we are doing document forms form1. So the form1 that we have created will come in this. Okay, then we are doing variable text equals to empty string. So we are creating a variable text equals to empty string. Then we are creating a variable I, and it is also like its value is nothing right now. Then we are doing for I equals to 0, I less than x dot length. X length is like x length is 3 over here, because this is the first one, this is the second, and this is the third. So x length is 3, I plus plus. This is quite bad indentation. Okay, so text plus, so this is a normal for loop, and then we're doing text plus equals to x dot elements. Elements is a default property, so like all the elements in it come I. So its 0th element is like Donald. Okay, so Donald has come. So like the element is not Donald, its value is Donald, and we want the value in text plus br leaves a line. Okay, and then when we print the whole text Donald, then the second one in this loop was duck, so duck came, and finally the third one was submit, so submit came. Okay, so if I run this and I change the values and then submit, oh sorry, if I run this and change the values and then try it, so these values will come because we are accessing their values, and the values are these that are over here. Okay, so the following HTML objects and object collections are also accessible. So document.anchors is also accessible, document.body is also accessible, document.document element is also accessible, document.embeds is also accessible, document.forms also, document.head also, document.images also, document.links also, document.scripts also, and document.title. So we like most of these we did in the previous chapter. Okay, so I don't think we need to try more, and we'll do this exercise some other time. Right now let's learn. Okay. This chapter is not too big. This is like just a small type of chapter. Oh, not so small, but it is quite big. And the next chapter that we will do, that's quite small. It is very small, but very informative. So now we are on JavaScript HTML DOM, changing HTML. We learned accessing in the previous chapter, but now changing. The HTML DOM allows JavaScript to change the content of HTML elements, changing the HTML output stream. JavaScript can create dynamic HTML content. Date Monday, March 22, 2021, 2012, 9 GMT plus 5:30 India Standard Time. Okay. In JavaScript, document.write can be used to write directly to the HTML output stream. So when you call when you use document.write, it adds whatever you give in it in the output stream. So it prints that. Like here we are want to printing the date. So new date and directly calling date is the same thing. New date and date are the same thing, and the time over here as is being updated, like the time is being updated, right? So okay, so because it is bringing the current date. Okay, so like you are doing document.write date, so it is printing date. So never use document.write after the document is loaded. So you should never use document.write after the document is loaded. It will override the document. It will override the document. So like it will vanish all the contents in your document that are there. So changing the HTML content. So how to change the HTML content? The easiest way to modify the content of an HTML element is by using the inner HTML property. So we all know that. To change the content of an HTML element, use the syntax. So you do document get element by ID. So access the element, then change it in a HTML using dot in a HTML equals to new HTML. So whatever the new HTML should be. This example changes the content of a P element. So like here we have a P element, and in that its text is hello world, that will be printed. We are accessing the P element using get element by ID method, and then we are changing it using HTML, and we are changing its HTML. So like we are changing the text that is printed in it, and we are printing new text instead of hello world. So new text would be printed. Okay, so we change the paragraphs printing, the thing that needs to be printed. So the example is now explained. The HTML document above contains a P element with ID P1. So it contains a P element, right, with the ID P1, right. We use the HTML DOM to get the element with ID equals to 1. So like we are using the HTML DOM over here to get the element with ID equals to 1, P1, okay. Then JavaScript changes the content using inner HTML. So like the inner HTML of that element to new text. So it is changing the content, that is the inner HTML, to new text. So this example changes the content of an H1 element. Over here we change the content of an P element, and now we are changing its content, like content of an H1 element. So we are doing H1, it's ID01, old heading. We are doing variable element. We are accessing old like ID01 Okay, this h1 thing, and then we are changing its inner HTML to new heading. So new heading would be printed. It's not, we are not printing it anywhere. Yeah, we are printing it. This is the h1, right? So new heading is being printed. Example explained: the HTML document above contains an h1 element with id equals to id01, right? So the h1, the HTML above contains an h1 element with id equals to id01, right? We use the HTML DOM to get the element by id equals to id01. So we are using the HTML DOM to get the element with id equals to id01 over here. Okay, then a JavaScript changes the content, that is the inner HTML of that element, to new heading. So we are changing its content to new heading. Okay, now changing the value of an attribute. So how to change the value of an attribute? Like, to change the value of an attribute, use this syntax. So like, do document.getElement by id dot attribute equals to new value. Okay, so like, you can change the attribute also. This example changes the value of the source attribute of an image element. So over here we had an image element, its id is my image and its source is smiley.gif. We are accessing the element using the HTML DOM, and we are changing the attributes. The attribute is source, so we are changing its source to landscape.jpg. Okay, so it is being changed to landscape. This is the landscape.jpg. But if we didn't change it, then it will remain smiley.gif. So this is the gif. Quite not funny. Now the example is explained. The HTML document above contains an, so like, one second. Okay. So the HTML document above contains an image element with id equals to my image. So the HTML document above contains an image element with id my image. We use the HTML DOM to get the element with id equals to my image. So like, over here the HTML DOM above contains an image element with id my image. So it's image element with id my image. We use the HTML DOM to get the element with id my image. So we are using the HTML DOM to get the element my image, and then the JavaScript changes the source attribute of that element from smiley.gif to landscape.jpg. And the chapter is over. Now we are on the final chapter. That is an easy chapter, an informative chapter, and a cool chapter. So let's complete it and finish off this video. So like, guys, see, we have almost, like, we have done 5 chapters and now we are doing the 6th chapter. This is like cool. This is very good. So like, JavaScript HTML DOM changing CSS. How to change CSS? The HTML DOM allows JavaScript to change the style of HTML elements. So the HTML DOM allows JavaScript to change the style of HTML elements. So changing the HTML style. To change the style of an HTML element, use this syntax. So to access the element using its ID. Then do style, uh, add style over here, then the property, and then the new style. So the following example changes the style of P element. So here we had a P element, its ID is P2 and its text is hello world. We are accessing it using the HTML DOM. We are using the style thingy, and we are changing the property is color. So we are changing the color to blue. Okay, so like, it is being changed to blue. We are it is, the text is so good because we are accessing it, and its style we are doing we are changing the font family to Arial, and then we are changing the font size to larger. So it is looking quite good. Okay, now we are on using events. and then done. So the HTML DOM allows you to execute code when an event occurs. So the HTML DOM allows you to execute code when an event occurs. Events are generated by browser. So why events are generated by the browser when things happen to HTML elements. So the events that are generated by the browser when things happen to HTML elements. An element is clicked on. So one event is when it is clicked on. The other event is the page has loaded. And the third event is the input fields are changed. Okay, you will learn more about events in the next chapter of this tutorial that we will do in the part 2. Okay, this example changes the style of the HTML element with id equals to id1 when the user clicks a button. Okay, so like over here we are adding an event on click, and whenever the user clicks this button, its color would be changed to red. Okay, so we press click me, and it's so like we are accessing the id1 h1, and then we are changing its style color to red. More examples. Visibility. How to make an element invisible. Do you want to show the element or not? So we will do this some other time. Okay. Right now, let's focus on this. So HTML DOM style object reference. For all HTML DOM style properties, look at a complete reference. Okay, so we will see the reference some other time, and we have completed the video. So thank you guys. If you like this video, don't forget to smash that like button and share this video with as many people as you can. It supports me a lot. It helps me a lot with your likes and subscribe buttons. So like if you press the subscribe button, it would help me a lot because I would be confident to build more content like this, and I will see my subscribers growing, so I will bring daily content for you all. So do subscribe. Thank you guys. Bye. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep watching my videos. Dab!